What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and tonight I've got some football focus. I apologize in advance. This Pittsburgh Steelers versus Dallas Cowboy Week 5 of the 2024 NFL season is late. There was a big thunderstorm, thunder and lightning, rain everywhere, flooded the part of the inside of the stadium even. Tons of rain, delayed the game by an hour and a half last night, so the game went until like 1 o'clock in the morning. And then I had an early client this morning, a brand new dentist appointment this morning that didn't go the best. So it's been a sleepless, kind of rough 24 hours for me. So I'm not going to give you guys the standard blow-by-blow of the Pittsburgh Steelers 20-17 loss at home on Sunday Night Football to the Dallas Cowboys last night. You've seen the game, you've seen the other reviews, you know kind of the basis of what happened. That being said, I want to talk about why and who. I want to talk about kind of specifics of what happened, who is to blame, and the trajectory of this team. What a difference 2 weeks makes. This time 2 weeks ago, Pittsburgh was 3-0, and while the offense was conservative, Justin Fields was playing pretty solid clock management, no turnovers, playing smart. Wasn't flashy, wasn't terribly fun, but it was efficient. The running game was solid. We had some big plays from Pickens, the occasional stuff from Calvin Austin. The offense was kind of weak, but efficient in holding the ball, so we were putting up just enough to win. The defense was a top 5 unit. We were 3-0, feeling pretty good about that. And then we lost the game last week where the offense finally exploded and made some big plays, and we saw Justin Fields at his best, and the defense just somehow let up a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns and things to the Colts to get us to 3-1. Now all of a sudden we're at 3-2. We just lost at home to the Cowboys in a game we once again should have won. We were the superior team to the Colts that beat us last week and should have won that game. This game we also should have won, losing by a field goal. But the Cowboys, while their roster is generally pretty impressive, this year their roster is not as impressive as it usually is, and they came in with a lot of injuries. They had 2 corners hurt, they had a safety hurt, they had a couple guys on the defensive line hurt, a couple guys on the offensive line hurt. The Cowboys were a banged-up team that looks like they're on a bit of a downslope, and Pittsburgh should have been able to dominate this game. This should have been a Steelers win, and it wasn't. Again, I'm not going to go over the specifics of exactly what, but Pittsburgh, not only playing, yes, we're a little banged up. Did get Isaac Seumalo back, which is nice, but the Cowboys were so banged up, and the fact that Pittsburgh got 3 turnovers last night, won the turnover differential, I think it was 3-1 total, got a fumble recovery and 2 interceptions. Plus 2 of those turnovers were in the Cowboys' red zone, taking points off the board multiple times, making plays in the Cowboys' red zone to secure the ball, and still managed to lose in spite of winning the turnover battle and having the team that we have. So let's talk about specifics here. Again, I'm not going to spend as much time as I usually do on the game rundown, but I want to talk stats and I want to talk positions and exactly who is at fault for what here. Justin Fields last night, 15 of 27, 131 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, but a fumble. So no interceptions and 2 touchdowns. Sounds pretty good, right? But 15 of 27 is not great. 131 yards on 15 completions is not great. And another fumble is not great. Justin Fields, again, the positives of Justin Fields. He is probably the second best quarterback athlete in the league behind Lamar Jackson. Incredible athlete. Great with his feet. He can do some design runs. Last night, the offensive coordinator was calling some design runs for the first time for Fields, and he was making some solid, efficient runs. Nothing spectacular, but solid, efficient runs. That's a big positive for him. Also, Justin Fields can throw the ball on a rope. He can make some throws that very few other quarterbacks in the league can make. Again, he's athletic, he can throw on the move, he's got a strong as hell arm, and he can throw the ball on an absolute laser. He can make some plays that very few quarterbacks can make. He also can miss some easy throws that few quarterbacks don't miss. It kind of reminds me of a much more seasoned, much higher ceiling version of Anthony Richardson. Better overall talent, but Richardson can make some really strong, insane throws, and you go, wow, what a throw that was, and the next play he throws it right to the other team. He had several throws last night that could have been picked, just like last week. He could have thrown plenty of picks by now that he's gotten lucky that he has not thrown. Fields has not been super efficient these last couple of weeks. I guess last week was his best week, and we saw the highs of Justin Fields. Justin Fields has a ceiling that is really hard to quantify because he's such an athlete and he's got so many, getting out of the pocket, avoiding sacks, extending plays. But he also has a very low floor when he makes bad decisions, when he holds the ball too long, when he fumbles like he did last night. You got to be really careful with that stuff. So has Justin Fields now at a 3-2 record in a game like this, and you look at his performances, his only outstanding performance was in the Week 4 loss that we had last week. Did Justin Fields buy himself another start? I don't know. Russell Wilson is healthy. Here's the ups and downs. Again, Fields can run, Fields can extend the play, Fields can avoid sacks. But do you want to go with a guy out there who's fumbling a lot? He's got some communication issues with the offensive line. And he is just simply missing a lot of guys. He missed Van Jefferson on a deep ball last night that was open. He's missed George Pickens 2 or 3 times overall. Missed him a couple times last night on high balls to the outside. He missed Darnell Washington on a one-on-one where Darnell had a step that could have gone for a touchdown. Every single week, he's missing 3 to 4 throws that seem like he should be able to hit those. And, usually the ones he makes that are spectacular are George Pickens one-on-one boxing guys out and getting up with his hands and doing the things that George Pickens does. Bringing Russell Wilson in, yes, he's a veteran. He's going to make smarter overall decisions. He's a better pocket passer and a better overall passer, a more accurate passer. But Russell Wilson is an older quarterback who's slowing down. He is not as elusive as he used to be. He's not going to be able to run and get away in the way Justin Fields is. He's not going to have as many design runs and unique packages for him as Justin Fields does. And with this offensive line being so banged up and moving parts around so much and having different lineups every single week and having a bunch of guys out for the season, having a bunch of rookies in there, is this the best fit for Russell Wilson now? He's coming in older and banged up and playing with rookies and a makeshift offensive line. Is this a best fit for him? Or do you go with the guy who's got, not as good of a passer but can avoid the pressure a little more? So you've got a bit of a lose-lose right now and a very stagnant offense that is not doing enough for this team. The Steelers have not put together, really since Week 3, a complete game victory where both sides were doing as best as they possibly could. Let's talk about Najee Harris. Najee Harris, 14 carries for 42 yards last night. That is just 3 yards a carry. Najee's in his 4th year. Number one sign, Pittsburgh did not pick up Najee's 5th-year option. So they have questions at the very least about Najee Harris. Overall, I like Najee. In his 3 past seasons so far here in Pittsburgh, he's been a 1,000-yard rusher in all 3 seasons. He runs hard. He can run through tackles. He can finish runs. He's also shown at times he's been indecisive when it comes to picking holes, stutter stepping in holes, not making decisive decisions, not, bursting through the holes, but kind of tiptoeing and kind of doing a bit of a Le'Veon Bell thing, just not quite as skilled. Najee, when he's good, is very good. Najee, when he's indecisive, is not very good. This year, he's not been very good. A lot of that does come from, again, the offensive line. There's been a whole lot of moving parts, guys in the wrong positions, guys filling in, backups playing, rookies playing, guys hurt. So I cannot put this all on Najee. Also, Jaylen Warren has been hurt for the entire year and has now missed the last 2 games, but even played hurt the first 3 and didn't play all that well. Cordero Patterson came in and finally played pretty effectively last week and then got hurt, so he's out now. So Najee's core around him, guys that can spell him, last night were Jonathan Ward and Aaron Shamklin. If you're asking who the hell are those guys as far as NFL running backs, you're not alone. So Najee's supporting cast in terms of other running backs and offensive line is low, so you can't put it all on Najee. That being said, when other running backs come in, like Patterson, like Jaylen Warren did all of last year, and Patterson did in the game that he played in the most reps, both look better than Najee. So it is partially on Najee being able to find the holes. There's been a lot of talk of, is he a franchise running back? 3,000-yard seasons are pretty impressive, but again, Warren outperformed him for the past year or so. Cordero Patterson so far has shown more life in this running offense than Najee has. Other guys have succeeded in places that Najee has failed. That is worth talking about. Another guy worth talking about. Well, let's first go to the offensive line. I gave those guys a minus last night. They didn't play terribly well. Nothing stood out as being overtly bad, but they were getting bullied. They weren't giving Najee any opportunities. Again, just you guys know the outline of this. Nate Herbig, coming into the season, was going to be the starting center, out for the year. So that brings in Zach Frazier, who's been the biggest bright spot on this team. James Daniels, best blocker so far this season up until last week, out for the season. He's gone for the year. Isaac Seumalo was our best blocker last year. He was out for the first 4 games, finally came back and just played his first game yesterday. So he needs time to gel. So we've been without Seumalo. We are now without Herbig. We are now without Daniels. Troy Faatanu comes in because Broderick Jones was going to be our starter and he's banged up. Faatanu comes in and plays well for 1 game. He's out for the season. Broderick Jones now has to come back in after a bad game, and he's still playing banged up. So you got a guy playing hurt. They had Spencer Anderson come in and play pretty well, moved him out to bring in Mason McCormick, another rookie, who's played solidly, nothing special but nothing bad, but he's a rookie. So now on this line, you've got Broderick playing hurt, you've got Seumalo just came back, and you've got Frazier playing with Mason McCormick. So you've got 2 rookies in there. And then you've got Dan Moore, who I don't think he looked very good last night, but he hasn't been offensively bad so far this year. But again, a lot of guys playing out of position, a lot of backups playing, a lot of rookies coming in and then getting hurt, guys returning from injury. These guys need time to play together and gel together as the rookies mature and the veterans come back from injury. So with Seumalo back and another start under the belts of McCormick, and with how good Frazier has played so far as the bright spot, that should get a little better, but even still, it is not what you expected coming into this year. Drafting and bringing in like 7 guys in the last 2 years from free agency and draft together, and having this many injuries and still being this unsure of your offensive line. For the future looks bright. You know, if Fatanu gets back and Broderick gets healthy, and then you got guys like Frazier and McCormick, you have a young, athletic, solid line playing together. The future looks good, but the present right now, not what we expected. Negative for the offensive line last night. The 2 touchdowns we got, we had 17 points, 1 field goal from Boz. The 2 touchdowns were Connor Hayward and Pat Freiermuth. Pat has been the number 2 option on this team behind George Pickens all season long. He needs a little more help. Connor Hayward did drop 1 ball that was in his favor. Another one was thrown down the sidelines. Connor had to make a diving catch for it, had it in his hands and the ground, knocked it out, so it was considered incomplete. That was more on the errant throw. The ball was in his hands, so Hayward should have caught it, but I think it's more so a little too far from Justin Fields. I consider that another miss on Fields. Hayward got a touchdown last night. I like Connor Hayward, use him a little more, but we need more guys to contribute on offense. Let's talk real quickly about George Pickens. He was not really seen last night. He had 1 drop. 2 other targets that went to him were missed targets, too high. I think he had 3 catches yesterday for 30-something yards. That was essentially one of our leaders receiving last night. Pickens now he had the big play last night after the play was intercepted or whatever. It was the stupid pitching the ball around trying to get a touchdown at the last second. Pickens grabbed the guy by his face mask and threw him down, started a fight. He was only in for 30-something snaps out of 50-something last night, and they asked Tomlin, why is George Pickens not playing in these crucial 2nd and 3rd downs? Why are guys like Brandon Johnson from Denver and from the practice squad, why is he playing over him? Why is Calvin Austin getting more snaps than Pickens? Why is Van Jefferson getting more snaps than Pickens? Pickens did lead the team in targets yesterday with 7, but he was not on the field nearly as much as he should be as the number 1 receiver and best playmaker on this team. And Tomlin said he was kind of putting him essentially on a snap count. He was saying he was conserving him for productivity's sake, doing the kind of rideshare thing where you're saving your guy to be more productive later. That excuse only works if it's a really, really old guy who's late in his career, like a Russell Wilson. You want to conserve him until later in the season. If it's like a running back who's a pounder back, like an older Jerome Bettis guy, if it's someone who's hurt or it's someone who is way along in years, I can understand being conservative with playing time and trying to conserve the body and conserve hits for a play style. You do not conserve the body for a bad offense that needs playmakers and has no explosivity aside from George Pickens. When he's your number 1 receiver and he's your big downfield guy who makes the catches and makes the explosive deep ball plays, you do not put him on a pitch count. I think there is an attitude problem with George Pickens that Mike Tomlin doesn't want to tell the press about. We've heard Pickens complain in the past already, and we have a recent history of divas in the locker room at the wide receiver position. I'm not going to go down the list But ever since Antonio Brown, you've seen all the divas and all the celebrations and all the talking and everything happen in the last several years. That's a culture issue. That's why Deontay is no longer on this team. That's why AB got shipped out, and that could be the end of George Pickens down the road. Pickens is highly talented. The dude is the best one-on-one player in the league. He has got some of the best hands and feet and body control and deep threat ability of any receiver in the NFL. If not number one, he's right the hell up there. But he needs to watch his attitude. He's a young guy that has not done enough in this league to brag yet, and he's not a complete receiver. He's not a route runner. He's not a gigantic tackle breaker. He doesn't have all these other attributes. He is essentially a one-on-one deep ball guy. He needs to keep himself in check. That goes on Pickens and his effort and to keep his effort up. That also goes on the play calling to an extent to get him more targets. That goes on Justin Fields for missing him. And it also goes on Mike Tomlin for keeping egos in check. Next thing I want to talk about, Mike Tomlin. We're talking about hot seats today. We're talking about Fields, the offensive line, Najee, Pickens. Let's discuss Mike Tomlin because he had some big errors last night in terms of coaching. There was a 10-second runoff thing that Tomlin was banking on his defense getting a stop last night, and they gave the touchdown up, which left us less time on the clock. So there was a play when Mike Tomlin could have used a timeout instead of giving up a 10-second runoff. He chose to use the 10-second runoff, which gave his team less time last night to get down the field to try for a game-tying field goal. That is an error on Mike Tomlin's part. There also was a 12-man in the huddle, breaking the huddle, that Tomlin had to use a timeout instead of taking a penalty. So we wasted a timeout when we didn't have it at the end of the game to try and get down the field for a game-tying field goal. Those are Mike Tomlin issues. I have an issue with Mike Tomlin not using clock well and not managing timeouts well. This has happened now for a couple games in a row. This is 2 weeks in a row I've had to call out Mike Tomlin for some coaching issues. And again, second half, the defense came out in the first half and had Dak Prescott picking them apart completely. Mike Tomlin has some responsibility in doing coaching adjustments to get alignments, to get play calls, to get things right with his coordinators, to get the personnel ready for the holes in the defense that Dallas was finding, and we did not adjust. Yes, most of that, the majority of that goes on the players making those adjustments because they're on the field making the plays, but Mike Tomlin is responsible for part of that adjustment, working with his players and his coordinators, breaking down film at halftime to see where the holes are, to see who's breaking tackles, to see who's in the wrong gap assignments, to see who's sitting down in the zones, and figure those things out. And Pittsburgh did not do that. That partially goes on Mike Tomlin. Defensively, positives. TJ Watt, 1.5 sacks. He gets over 100, second youngest player to ever do it. Congrats, TJ Watt. Nick Herbig, half a sack. He and TJ together had 2 sacks. TJ gets 1.5. Herbig gets a half sack. Also gets a forced fumble and a fumble recovery on his play. So credit to him for getting a sack, forcing a fumble, and recovering a fumble, which helped to swing some momentum in Pittsburgh's favor. Herbig also got hurt last night. Injuries on defense now may become an issue at some point in the near future because Alex Highsmith is already hurt. Herbig was our third stringer, but he's good enough to be a starter. So while we miss Highsmith, Herbig was doing just as well in there, leaving Watt one-on-one or getting himself one-on-one when Watt's double-teamed to create pressure on both sides of the outside. With Highsmith and now Herbig hurt, and I hope Herbig is back next week. We don't know yet. I haven't heard anything. But he went down and went in the tent and then went to the locker room. So if we lose Herbig, we are down to some problems because DeMarvin Leal came in on the outside. He got hurt and didn't return to the game, and his injury looked more serious than Herbig's did. So then we came down to Jeremiah Moon. So we were down to the 5th and 6th outside linebackers when Watt was on break yesterday. When Watt came back in, he was in there with Jeremiah Moon. They can key up on Watt now and let Moon do whatever he wants, and there's not enough star power on the outside to get pressure. So that's going to be a problem if Herbig and or Highsmith don't come back soon because the interior D-line is not getting enough pressure. I like Larry O. He wasn't very effective last night. He came into the game a little banged up, so he wasn't great last night. Cam got one nice quarterback pressure, but that was about it. There was one batted ball from Keanu Benton, but that was about it. Each guy's making 1 or 2 really good plays a game, but they need a little more consistency, getting more inside pressure. The outside guys are there. The inside guys are not, especially if the outside guys start getting hurt. The inside guys got to step it up. I want to give positive credit to Landon Roberts for diving at the goal line to force a fumble on a 3rd down and goal. What an athletic, freakish play from that amazing athlete. Once again, Deshaun Elliott's all over the field. He's blitzing, he's tackling, he's diving around, he's playing much like Troy Polamalu did back in his day. He's playing great. Love what he's doing. Want to give him a lot of credit. Also, Peyton Wilson, great in the run game. Has not flashed in the pass game just yet. Playing amazing in the run game. Good short tackler, fast, catching up to guys, making plays in the run game. Peyton Wilson playing well. Negatives, though. Minkah Fitzpatrick. I know this video is going way too long, but I want to quickly discuss Minkah Fitzpatrick. Something is wrong. He's been a step slower than usual. His tackling when he commits to a play is still great. He's our leading tackler every single week. He's still an anchor on the defense as far as being around the ball goes. But as it goes to coverage, I'm sorry for the fucking train or bus or whatever's plane going past my house. But Minkah Fitzpatrick has been in the deep safety role coming up too often, making poor decisions coming up too often, and also deciding on the wrong receiver too often. That's gotten us beat deep now 3 times in the past 2 weeks. It happened last week in Indy. It happened twice this week, once on the sideline and once in the middle of the field. He's playing too shallow sometimes, and when he's playing deep, he's choosing the wrong receiver, and it's getting us beat for splash plays. Also, the 2 outside guys, we had 2 picks yesterday. JPJ got a nice pick over the middle of the field, and Dante Jackson got a pick in the Dallas end zone to take points off the board. Those were 2 excellent plays from our starting corners, but they played off way too far in coverage yesterday. Dallas had 4 players over 50 yards receiving, as Dak had over 350 last night. The pass defense was not good. Beanie Bishop was not good. Really bad from Bishop last night. And although the other 2 starting corners got picks, we had a lot of issues with JPJ and Dante Jackson playing way too far off, getting beat on comeback routes, getting beat on in routes, and getting beat on the sidelines and on slants, just playing too far off and allowing too much cushion for big plays where there was no reason to allow those. Not good from any of our 3 corners last night. Queen's pass coverage has not been great. He's been good in the run game, but a little bit indecisive and a little bit off. And the interior D-line wasn't good overall. Boswell goes 1 for 1 on field goals, good for him. Waitman, 5 punts for 222 yards. It's a 44.4 average, and 2 of his 5 punts inside the 20. Solid day for him, 1 really good punt as a high. And then there was a blocked field goal last night from Isaiah Loudermilk, who got a nice hand up to bat the ball, which he does very, very well. That's a strength of his on defense and special teams. So good play from Loudermilk there. What do you guys think about all the players that I called out? Talk to me in the comments about who stands out to you as part of the problem for these last 2 weeks and the folding on both sides of the ball. Penalties, coaching, running, offensive line, health and injuries overall, pressure on defense, corners playing too far out, Minkah, Najee, Fields, Tomlin. Who do you blame for this? All the above? What do you think about the ones I listed, and who do you got? Tell me in the comments down below. Please like, share, and subscribe. I will shut up now. It's been a long video. I'll see you guys next week, hopefully for a rebound. Go Steelers.